This Fleet Equipment Unscripted interview is presented by Hendrickson, a leading manufacturer of heavy-duty suspension systems and components to the global commercial transportation industry. Visit hendrickson-intl.com to learn more.
Hi everyone, I'm Jason Morgan, Content Director for Fleet Equipment, and welcome to Fleet Equipment Unscripted. Today we're talking with Jane Jazrawy, CEO of Carrier's Edge. Jane, it's great to see you again.
It's great to see you too, Jason, and oh man, the pronunciation of my name, it's near and dear to my heart. Did it perfectly.
No, I know. I struggled with it the first time, and it feels like yesterday. It was actually during the pandemic, so it's fun to catch up with you again. Okay. And it's fun to talk about a fun topic, because today we're talking about a great program that you all run called Best Fleets to Drive For. And whenever I see anything, I actually see it a lot. I see it on the back of trailers as I'm going down the road. Fleets like to really put that out there. And it got me thinking, well, what does make a good fleet to drive for? And especially from an equipment point of view, right? Because we love talking about equipment. So when you're going through the program and you're deciding on those best fleets to drive for, are there any standout equipment commonalities when you go through that process?
They all use different things. Like there are some things that you see over and over again, but they all use different trucks. They haul different freight, so they're using different trailers. But what you do see is that they act early and they act slow.
Okay.
So if they're going to change something, they're going to do it. They're not going to wait for everybody else. They're going to do it. They're going to think about doing it for themselves and what is good for their company. And they start very, very slowly. And the other commonality that I would say is that they all have relationships with their vendors, like really deep relationships. Even the smaller companies will pick a vendor. So if it's Kenworth or Volvo or whatever it is, they are talking to them a lot. So they're testing things out. They're right in there and they're doing things right at the beginning. So when we're doing the Best Fleets interviews, we often hear about technology that's just on the forefront, like LNG, electric vehicles.
Right.
Even like people have been talking about autonomous vehicles a little bit.
Right. Well, and I mean, that sounds like a different conversation in Best Fleets to Drive For with autonomous. So I won't dig into that because it's still early days. But, you bring up technology too. And it's interesting that this kind of deliberate approach to technology adoption, right? A very in-depth, to your point, working with suppliers to really understand what they're putting in the hands of their drivers. From the driver's view then, and then how it approaches them, do you see these fleets leveraging any technology in terms of communicating with their drivers, training their drivers, working with their drivers on a platform to help bring this all together as well?
There's a couple of things there, because when you want to start using a new technology, one of the things that the Best Fleet, the top 20 for sure does this all the time, is you can't just say, okay, here you go. And that's when we see huge failures, is when people, implement a technology at the last minute. They do it with their entire fleet all at once. The change just happens, bang, bang, bang. And drivers are like, whoa, what happened? And actually, it's not just drivers. It's just people in general don't know what's going on, because change is often good, but it takes you have to manage it. You have to figure it out and figure out how it's going to affect people. So one of the things that all the Best Fleets do is that they use pilot programs. So when they do have a new technology, it doesn't matter what technology it is. It could be back office software. It could be, a driver app, could be a new truck or a new piece of equipment on a truck, so you're adding something to, you're adding some sort of environmental feature or something like that. They will always test it, and they'll test it with groups of drivers. Sometimes they use their driver committee. If they have drivers of the month and of the year, and they have those people, trusted people who've been there a long time, and they want that feedback, they'll get that feedback before they, put it out to everybody. And sometimes they're piloting different competing products to see. So for example, with ELDs, they'll have one ELD with this group and then one ELD with that group, and then they'll compare. So that's there's a lot of technology in Best Fleets. I remember a while ago, like years and years ago, someone was complaining to me that they didn't think that they could be a best fleet because they didn't have technology. And they thought that it was more about technology would equal best, but it doesn't. Technology is great, but technology is a tool. And if you don't use if you don't use that tool correctly, or if you don't implement it correctly, you may as well not use it.
Right, right. Well, and I feel like that's probably a topic that's near and dear to Carrier's Edge heart. And when you're working with your clients and your fleets, right? Are you able to leverage any of that learnings and how you then work with your customers so that they're successful in the deployment of technology?
It's funny, because I like when I started in training, I wasn't in trucking. I was like a software trainer, and so change management has been kind of ingrained into the company from the get-go. Mark and I both worked with a lot of technological change around the turn of the millennium, and so we have learned a lot of lessons, and change management is one of them. You do it slow, you do it a little bit at a time, and you make people feel comfortable about it. And this is what we do with our own product as well. So if we have a new customer that comes on board, we take our support really, really seriously. And support, our customer experience team will, take people through a walkthrough. We also don't insist that you put all your drivers in at once. So if you want to start with 5 drivers, fine, work out the kinks. If you want to, if you tell us your plans, then we can work with you to make sure that those plans are successful. We also do a lot of talking about how to, get buy-in.
Right.
It's the other really important thing about technology. Any new thing, like even a truck, is if you have a certain fleet of certain types of trucks, like say you're going from manual transmission to automatic transmission, like super change, right? Like that, you cannot just say, okay, sorry guys, but we're going to be using automatics now, and see what the response is. But if you start doing it a little bit at a time, you give people choices. Choices are huge. So we let people come in the way they want to come in. The way that they feel comfortable, because when you push things on people, they're going to push back.
Yeah.
And unless they are a very, very specific mindset, which I can't remember the book, but it's the whole early adopter. There's like a wave of how you accept technology. Right. And some people are at the very beginning and early adopters, and some people are very late adopters. Right. And they need some time. They just need time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you make a really great point, especially on the technology side, the trucking technology side. If you're going to a new platform or a new process, I mean, the exciting thing is there's lots of possibilities, right? You're talking with your clients. Hey, we can do all these great things. And then when you go to actually execute them, right? That's great on a sales cycle, but when you go to actually execute them and want that to succeed, it's a lot, and it can feel very overwhelming. Yes. And I've seen that as well, making it approachable,
Execution is key. Sales is great, but we like to pride ourselves on execution, and we like to try and provide the ways to win at execution. And it's all about slow and steady, and don't wait for the last minute. Waiting for the last minute, especially with technology, is going to kill you.
Right. Going back to something you said earlier about becoming a best fleet to drive for, one of the things that always sticks out to me, especially with even some of this technology, is safety, right? And from a driver's point of view, I want to feel safe. I want to know my equipment's safe. I don't, from the new equipment you're speccing to our maintenance practices to my training, right? Is there anything in terms of a fleet's focus on safety and how that impacts the best fleet to drive for moniker?
I think you'd be very hard pressed to find a fleet who says that they're not safe. Even if all the numbers and all of the measurements all say you're not super safe. Right. You have a few accidents going on here. Your drivers you've got a really high, your CSA is out to lunch, but they will still say that safety is the priority, and we take safety really seriously. Right. So, but they're also saying that to us when they're trying to win an award. So take it with a grain of salt. But the thing with safety is that if you have to walk the walk. So if you're concerned about safety, you actually have to not dispatch your drivers when they're nearly out of hours. You have to force them, like you don't want to be forcing them into something. And what I find is that I don't even listen to the word safe when people tell it to me. I look at the results. I look at what their programs are, the technology that they're using. So there's a lot of training technology that can be used, not just online training, but there's simulators, there's using virtual meetings. There's so many things that you can do, but cameras, also.
Right.
There's so many things that you can do that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at all of the different technologies that are being used, how they're being used. Are they being used like in isolation? Right. That's what I find a lot of fleets do, is they use technology in isolation. So, we've got cameras. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to call a driver every time we see a hard break on a camera. Right. So you're using technology and your insurance company may be happy about it, but you're not using it to its fullest potential. You're irritating people now with your technology.
Right.
It's like Facebook. Remember poking in Facebook, where people would just send you a poke, and irritating things like that.
No, that's well, and I again it underscores one of your earlier points that I mean, I hope I'll paraphrase correctly here. You said something in the regards like, hey, technology is great, and there's a lot of it, but so much of it is this human component of interacting with people and understanding people and collaborating with people, and technology is not going to do that for you, right? You got to do that.
And the mistake that I think that a lot of people will make is solving the problem with technology. Mm-hmm. They'll say, you know what? We need a CRM, or we need a new dispatch system, or we need a new online training system, or we need this technology in our vehicles. But that's just the technology. What are you going to do with it?
Right.
So the plan, and this is any technology. So even if you are, even if you're just using Zoom, Zoom versus Teams versus whatever.
Right.
What you have to do is think about what the end game is. What do you want to do with this CRM, with this, this piece of software, with this technology? Right. And then you can look at the different the different products and say, okay, which one is going to do the thing I want it to do?
Right.
And that forces you to say, okay, what is the problem I'm trying to solve?
Right.
And if you can't say what the problem is that you're trying to solve, technology is not. Well, it might randomly help you, but you need to have a plan. And the best fleets generally have a plan, because they'll say, okay, we need to connect with our drivers more. So how are we going to do that? You can use text, you can use phone, you can, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So you just decide what it is that you want to do.
Right. Jane, lots of great takeaways here. I've learned a lot. The best fleets to drive for programs, wonderful. If I'm a fleet, how do I get involved in this? How can I get it if I want to throw my hat in the ring? What do I do?
You as a fleet can't do very much, but what you can do is find a driver to nominate you. Okay. So one driver, the day after Labor Day, that's when 2024 opens. Okay. You can go to bestfleetstodrivefor.com, and the nomination form will be there. And if you like your fleet, if you think that it's a good fleet to drive for, just basically put your name, email, the contact, and why you think it's a good fleet.
Very cool. Jane, thanks so much for taking the time. Wonderful to catch up with you. I'm sure I'll talk to you again very soon.
Yeah. Thanks very much.